Down in my soul. Good morning. Happy Sunday to you. For those of you that don't know me, hello? Quit doing that. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Reverend Clive deLaporte. I'm your interim minister. I'm blessed to minister to you today. In message and meditation. I think the band has gone rogue. Or maverick. One of the two. Today we're going to talk about understanding. It's an extension of what we spoke about last week. Because July is the 7th month of the year, and understanding is the 7th of the 12 powers. And so we try and take one Sunday a month to focus on the gift of these 12 aspects that we believe are the presence and the power of God within us, with one purpose alone, and that is to help us more fully experience and express our Christ truth. It is in the experience of our Christ truth that we are blessed. And it is in the expression of our Christ truth that we bless the world. Because if each one of us were more Christ-like, the world would be a better place. Now, a reminder to anybody that's new to the unity philosophy, we take the Christ to be the image and likeness of God in every human soul, regardless of religion, culture, race, creed, gender orientation. It is the grace and the goodness of God that has been seeded into each one of us. And our lives have meaning and purpose in that we are called to live from this awareness in anything we choose to do with our lives. I'm thinking of taking a year off. After working with you guys, I'm going to need a year off. Maybe two. But I was thinking to myself, what would I do? And you know, there's some jobs out there that fascinate me. Just fascinate me. I'd like to take time to be a Starbucks barista. Isn't that a cool job? Man. Or that guy at PetSmart or Petco that gets to groom the dogs. That person. How about that? Or in spring, to work for a landscaping company, planting all those plants and things like that. I'd also like to be a Walmart greeter. What? Seriously. I mean, just think about that. You're going to see, a couple of hundred people a day, maybe 1,000, and you're going to go, hey, good morning, how are you? Have a good day. Smile. Interact for a moment. So this brings me to this Christ thing. It's this beautiful expression of God's grace and good within us. And the only obstacle we face are these barriers that we've built up against us. We don't have to go look for it. We don't have to invent it. We don't have to create it. We don't have to buy it. It doesn't care where we were born, whether we talk funny. It's just there, asking us to participate in its expression and in our experience of it. And understanding plays a very important part in that experience and expression. Proverbs 3:13 says, happy are those who get understanding. Happy are those who get understanding. And we know that the spiritual comes before the material. So anything that we get to experience mentally and emotionally and physically has to be first realized in us spiritually. And happiness is nothing more than the joyful expression of spiritual wholeness and health. To be truly and authentic happy, we must first be spiritually whole, mentally and emotionally and physically healthy. And so rather than worrying about the fruit of happiness, we need to focus on the seed of spiritual wholeness. And understanding helps us do that. Because divine truth needs to be sown in the soil of our consciousness, of our hearts first, before it can grow and come into harvest in the material manifestation of our lives. So what is this thing we call understanding? I was hoping you'd be able to tell me. No? Okay, I knew I left something out of my preparation. Of course, understanding, we spoke about this last week. It's that apprehension, that comprehension, that knowing of something to the level that we are able to realize it and rely on it. Do you get this? We spoke last week about faith. How faith first gives us belief, and then faith gives us knowing, and then faith gives us understanding. We come into understanding by actively participating in the experiment and the experience of our lives, by trying things, by taking truth out into the world, out into our lives, and actively living the truth we know. Not just being students of truth, but actual doers of truth. Yes? And so we learn experientially. We come into a greater understanding because we are actively living the truth we know. Now, when I say truth, am I speaking about a religion? No. I'm glad to see some people like, no. And some of you are like, I don't know. I'm not speaking about a religion. I'm not speaking about a religious book. I'm not speaking about a particular faith. Truth is the spiritual essence of the presence and power of God within you that gives you real-time feedback on what is the right and good thing to do in any circumstance you find yourself, regardless of which religion you choose to follow or which sacred book you choose to read. So divine understanding is our ability to apprehend and to comprehend and to know that which is true and that which is good. Last week I shared with you how often when I do a workshop, that word apprehend gives me some amusement with Americans. I often ask people, what does apprehend mean to you? And it's normally got to do with something related to incarceration, you know, being apprehended by the police and taken off to the police station where you get into a whole lot of trouble. But apprehension for us is that aha experience, right? It's that time when the curtain in our understanding opens and we have that enlightened awareness of something that is true. And it wakes up in us and it comes to us with power. And it comes to us with presence that it inspires us and aspires us to be more than we can be. It's an active, powerful force in our lives. It's not just an intellectual like, oh yeah, I knew that. It knocks on the door of our heart. And it calls us to be all and everything we possibly can be. And that all and everything we possibly can be is the unique expression of the Christ that each one of us is. We talked about last week how understanding gives us a gift, and that gift is the peace of assurance. Because as we come to know God as our source and supply of good, and to trust God as that source and supply of good, we get assurance because we come to understand God as reliable. Reliable. And if there's any wavering, and if there's any confusion, if there's anything going on in our lives that is out of the order of good, it is probably us that is bringing that dimension to our life experience. God is true. Spirit is right. And when we are aligned in an understanding way with that source, it shows up in our lives. we talked about how we learn as human beings. How in everything we go through a process of coming more fully into our divine competency. We jokingly remembered that when we begin that learning process, we are often unconsciously incompetent. Oh, it's hard. I know. I've been unconsciously incompetent for most of my life. There's a certain bliss to it. What? You know, you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know. And you think you know it all. It's wonderful. You're always right. You never make mistakes, and everybody else is just crazy. Yeah? And then one day you wake up and you go, you know what? I'm not getting the results in this area of my life that I want. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Now suddenly you are consciously incompetent. Right? You're consciously incompetent. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to get some help. And so you start to learn, and you start to grow, and you start to talk to other people. You start to learn vicariously. You start to make mistakes, which we all do, and you learn from those mistakes. And then the day comes that you become consciously competent. Now you know what you're doing, and you know that you know what you're doing. And you have a certain degree of confidence about what you're doing. And then you come into that final state of grace, that place that we're trying to get spiritually, where we become unconsciously competent. We know what we're doing, we know that we know what we're doing, and we know it so well we don't even think about it anymore. We understand it. And in that understanding we have assurance. We don't question the law of gravity anymore. We know, don't jump off tall buildings. Things end badly for you. Right? We know that. We understand this thing. Don't drive your car into a wall at 60 miles an hour. We understand these things. And so it is with our spiritual experience. Faith is trying to lead us from the wishy-washy belief to the knowing, to the certainty of knowing, to the peace and the assurance of understanding. I know God. I understand God. I know how God shows up in my life. I understand how my spiritual experience is meant to be. And so we move spiritually from a head experience to a heart experience. Those of you that read the Bible might be familiar with Jesus often saying when he was teaching to a crowd, let those who have ears hear. Have you heard this expression? Okay. Now think about that for a moment. That kind of means that in the crowd there were some people that didn't have any ears, right? No? Yes? Okay. It's a spiritual reference. Jesus is talking to a group of people, teaching them in parables, and he's saying to them, if you get it, if you apprehend, if you comprehend the essence of what I'm trying to share with you, understand it. Understand it. And so why is understanding so important? Let's answer this final question before we close our teaching today. Why is understanding so important? Understanding is important because it takes us to a whole new level in our spiritual experience. It takes us from seeing what is true and what is good, to understanding what is true and good, to owning it our very selves. The word that Charles Fillmore often used was appropriating it. Spiritual truth needs to be apprehended and appropriated. It needs to be taken into yourself. It needs to be sown in the soil of your mind and your heart. It needs to be the thing that guides your thoughts, your words, your actions. When you make that your own, when you've realized that truth with an understanding heart within you, any good is possible. You have sown the seed of divine truth in the soil of your soul. It will grow. It will flower. It will come to harvest. Just as surely as the tomato seed produces tomatoes and the apple seed produces apples. And so happy are those who find understanding. Understanding brings us more fully into the grace and the good of God. We see things with divine insight and enlightenment. We know that our good is sure. We are enabled and empowered to live with peace and perseverance and patience in the world, knowing that God, as our eternal and infinite source of good, is sure. My prayer for you today is that you will take that truth into a higher degree of understanding, into your mind and into your heart. And now as John comes up and leads us in a song preparing us for meditation, let's sing along and prepare our hearts and minds for a time of silence.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Sanctuary